Welcome to Rule a World 3D. I am your podcaster and usually storyteller, Daniel Isham. I have decided to do something different. I wanted to invite guest storytellers from my favorite podcasters. The first one who gave me the idea from his podcast, well, let me introduce him. I've been listening to him for many years. Him and his friend Eric and Jordan did a show called Lorehammer, which taught the rich Warhammer 40,000 lore for hundreds, if not thousands of hours. It was an amazing, most episodes I listened to multiple times. He currently does an amazing show with his friend Christian, where they read audience stories from the Warhammer 40,000 universe. This amazing podcast is called Lorehammer Listener Lore, and I highly recommend listening to it. This amazing podcaster's name is Mark. I hope you find him as an amazing storyteller as I did a podcaster. He's gonna be, it's amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing your comments.
Today we are going to take a segment from Professor Jason Hippo from the University of Bob on his speech on the 100th expansion. As we all know, there are many reasons for the 100th expansion. The main reason, though, was the desire for individual super companies to find resources and new markets. For all their products, the galactic marketplace had gotten so powerful that literally trillions of exploration vessels went into the vast darkness of space, each holding thousands of cutting-edge probes. They brought some of the best diplomats money could buy and archaeologists so they could exploit lost technologies or future tourist sites. Up to that point, that was the largest attempt to colonize space that had ever been attempted. 10 times as many colony ships as there were exploration vessels. Science exploded even compared to the first computer age, space age, to what came before this. Scientific explosion blew that one away. Things like replicators became a common thing throughout the galaxy, though some societies quickly went from newly established villages to being intersolar competitors. This was quite a shock to these barbarians. Many people embrace the primitive religious faith and try to preserve their way. But the people on these front lines of the colonizations are worshippers of Absalom and are just after making themselves rich for both the present and afterlife. Thus, except for the show, they weren't going to preserve these people's way of life any more than they had to make money. The galactic nation had little to no power in these colonies, seeing many of these corporations claim megacorp status, and thus claiming themselves as nations. The biggest of these, and considered the most foolish for growing too fast, was the Isham Corporation. Owned and run by a small family, the CEO was always chosen from amongst the family and educated in the field in some of the best schools. Many proved themselves worthy, found a way to becoming CEOs of competitor businesses, or to start their own and make it a huge success, but never as well as their family business. The Isham family are, to this day, devoted Absalom worshippers and usually only hire members of the faith. Their company started as a space freight company using the Stargate network to truck material in from one end of the galaxy to the next. In less than 100 years, they had expanded to every possible industry. That's what got them to start the 100th Great Expansion. The company realized three things. First, that many of the companies were expanding their product line through xenotechnology, through xenoarchaeology, by getting long-lost technologies from long-dead races. These companies were making 4 or 5 times as much money as they made before. They also realized that even with replicators, most materials created by them weren't as high quality, and that their companies had few worlds under their control to produce these resources. Finally, they realized they could produce what they wanted, the way they wanted. They found in the laws that they would become a megacorp. Soon after that they switched their space docks from producing ships to be sold to private companies, individuals, and militaries solely producing exploration vessels. They scoured worlds of space crews to send out on these vessels. Instead of paying the captains, they would simply give them a percentage of the total earning of the world. They discovered this would be part of the company's undoing, seeing that most of these captains were priests of Absalom, and the priesthood is protected by the faith law firm, who each member is a high priest of the faith, and is the most feared law firm in the galaxy. The lawsuit itself nearly destroyed the company. Of the captains versus the Isham Corporation, which was a $900 trillion lawsuit, plus the paying back of the original agreed upon cut. The result of these exploration missions found several million star systems, as well as hundreds of millions of colonies. As some worlds, the population turned certain thriving worlds into ghost town worlds, because so many got the colonization fever and the widespread belief of Absalom. Other companies saw that the Isham Corporation was doing and a massive profit from it, and the freedom that becoming an intergalactic megacorp gave them. Their biggest competitor in this land grab was the Fruit Corporation, which is most famous for starting out as an underwear manufacturer. Their second most profitable product outside underwear was space product, which, just like the Isham Corporation, they shifted into producing exploration vessels. And just like the Isham Corporation, they took as many crews as they could for these ships. At first, this was a profitable enterprise, but it led to the second blow of being a megacorp. The cost of running a nation are different than running a company. With natives and pirates, and real nations trying to take claimed territory, each company had to use a large portion of their profits hiring and raising militaries of all types to defend the bottom line. The cost of diplomats, the cost of policing their worlds, the cost of what the company had as a standard of living, or even beyond that, the convincing people to go out into space. Another nation-state's cost they didn't consider is building and maintenance of their famous corporate Stargate network, which could link into the public Stargate network. The cost of maintaining and policing the spaceways, the waterways, the highways, etc. After a few centuries, these costs were putting the megacorp companies down to zero or below in profits, and starting to make these companies go bankrupt. So what happened to the colonies they were supporting? They left them on their own. Some were able to become part of an established nation. Others died off. Others, like the one established on Bob, which we know as the Isham Empire, those who followed this path had different levels of success, from degrading to cave people tribes to becoming intergalactic powers in their own right. This expedition changed the face of the galaxy and is in effect to this day. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's very cool. I've read some of the other stuff that you've written too. So when I was going through this and piecing it all together, I was kind of putting together notes of mostly this, but some of the grander scheme of things. But you paint such a rich imagery where you're painting this futuristic universe with elements such as like space exploration, cutting edge probes, replicators, intergalactic mega corporations. This imagery really helps bring the setting to life. And I have a further question about kind of, let's call it the vibe. Like,
sure,
you know, I'm a Warhammer 40k player, so the vibe of Warhammer is grim, dark. I feel like the vibe of this is more like almost Star Trek, where it's almost, yeah, there are some dark aspects to it, but it's more hopeful. It's about exploration. Is that kind of the correct?
Well, it just depends on, I have multiple different society levels.
Sure.
The one I chose for this particular empire was Star Trek level.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess it really is a Star Trek level, but it's also a very Ferengi Star Trek level.
Yeah, that was my next point. Like, yeah, even though it's Star Trek-like, like Star Trek is all about like socialism and everyone works together. No one's getting paychecks. Where this is the exact opposite. People are going to be out there getting paid.
Yes, people are getting paid. And in the next episode, I actually talk about how angry the colonists are that the company left without telling them.
Yeah.
And because they don't get any more pay.
Yeah. I like how you're expanding the universe slowly. Like each little kind of segment, we're getting this next piece of the world and the story's unfolding. And you provide the motivations behind, like, these different factions, the 100th expansion and their colonization efforts and all that kind of stuff. I really kind of like this, like, the hardest part of doing a story is where do you start? But you kind of start, and I feel like there's a good flow kind of building.
Yeah, I take a lot of ideas from history, from podcasts I listen to, from all over the place. Like, I got the idea for how this company grew from a YouTube video I watched about the company on Alien, the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the company, but they started out as a frozen dinner company and then became the one that you see in the movie Alien.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And you got your Wear Bandits going on that are now not. They're better than that now.
Yeah. Well, the Wayland, whatever the name of that company in Aliens, it's a megacorp just like this one.
Yeah.
They actually rule over multiple different colonies just like this one does.
Yeah.
And I had the idea that, after so many centuries and millennia of exploiting territory, you need to get resources from somewhere if you're going to expand to be a powerful corporation.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. Does like the Isham Empire have like Isham?
I simply use my last name.
Does it have like a set of rights that it gives to its citizens? Or since they kind of work for the corporations, it's like, yeah, you got a couple people that are kind of making money and living their life, but everyone else is kind of more of like a slave class, No,
it's, I've read The Wealth of Nations, so I'm kind of basing it on the ideas that it has there, that everybody goes, yeah, in, my previous episode, I actually talked about how to get people to go out there, they talk about the standards of living, which include a replicator in the kitchen, places to make a standard cookie cutter house with all of the amenities, plus all the standards that a normal Republic person receives as rights and privileges.
Yeah. So it is very beneficial to be a part of it. Like that you get treated fairly, and if you work hard, you will make some money.
You'll make lots of money.
Yeah.
Because Absalomism is all about making money. Let me just give you an idea of how crazy Absalomism is. Their temples are used as their central banks.
Perfect.
Their equivalent of local churches are basically bank branches. And in order to be a regional leader of the church, you have to be the best lawyer
and accountant.
Well, the best lawyer in the area, because all the high priests are also required to be members of that law firm I was telling you about.
Yeah. So yeah, tell me more about this religion. Like, so they worship money.
They worship a god who's all about wealth, trade, and progress. Yeah.
Is this god a real god, or have you thought about kind of that, or kind of how did this happen?
I'm also a fan of Starfinder and Pathfinder.
Sure, yeah.
And he's one of their, doing a bit of changes, but he is originally one of their gods.
Okay, yeah.
And I've simply made some tweaks here and there, to fit
them in a little bit better and make them your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Another thing I really like about this are the themes for exploration and change. Like, there's scientific advancement, there's exploration, there's colonization, there's religious beliefs, and all these different impacts that they have on everyone that they're meeting, like in the mega corporations. I like that you're going like, this sounds pretty political and like pretty like economical. That's not the right word, but I like that like this isn't necessarily always about who has the biggest army or like it's who can get to the planet first and strip mine it. That's who's going to be profitable, not who's going to wage the biggest war. It's a very interesting take on it.
And in the board game, I'm basing this on a world-building 3D printing board game that me and a friend are creating. And to win the game, you don't need to conquer the people. You could buy them out. You could diplomatically remove them, make them so weak that you could annex them. That kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
The pieces of military. I've always had power fantasy of being a ruler of a country. and after I saw this guy who made what I use as the board, he calls his company the Raccoon Brotherhood. He's this teacher from the Netherlands who does this on the side. I said to myself, yeah, I'm going to make a board game that allows me to live this fantasy.
Yeah. I
think that's also what got me into Warhammer.
Yeah. As a 13-year-old boy, you're like, I want to be a big, tall, buff man and shoot aliens. Yeah, no, I get that.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. And well, as I told you earlier in our discussion beforehand, I went into political science originally, so.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell how, like, you know, your choice of interest in real life is bleeding into this. I really like it. I like the plot points, like how the corporation transitions from a small space freight company to an exploration focused organization, and the clash between the captains and the corporation and financial challenges. Like this mega corporation stuff. What I like about this is like, I can see this happening. Like, we're close to this spot right now. Like, go look at BlackRock, you know, they own a lot of stuff right now. Mm-hmm. You know, like, it's a scary kind of dark version, you know, of things, but at the same time...
Well, it actually did happen. It actually did happen at one time. You've heard of the British East India Company.
Yeah, for sure.
They literally took over India with an army.
Yeah.
And they found that a company and a nation are entirely different beasts. That's why they eventually had to give it over to the British Crown, because a country's not profitable.
Yeah, no, they just take your hard-earned money and then spend it on nonsense.
Well, you also have armies are really expensive.
Yeah.
Navies are expensive. Basic civil services are expensive, like roads. Roads aren't free, you know?
Yeah, like that's the thing. There are easier ways to do mass collateral damage without having to fire guns, especially when we're talking about, like, you know, futuristic quantum computing hacking, you know?
Yeah. Well, in my next episode, I actually talk about how they consider different nation states like technocracy. Have you ever heard of the concept?
Yes, for sure.
Where the idea that you get a supercomputer to be your head of state.
Yeah.
Yep. I actually consider that in my next episode.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Like, that's another one where it's like you're taking these themes that we are talking about in real life and playing them out and seeing how that would actually work out. I don't want to be run by a computer, but I hope it works out for that country.
Well, this country is going to be ruled by an emperor. He actually explains why in the next episode, he actually explains why that's a bad idea to be run by a computer.
Yeah. How populated is this galaxy? Like, are there tons of aliens, or is it kind of...
Yes, there are. One of the things, me and my friend aren't aliens at this point. I suggested he be. I think I even have one of my diplomats figurines as an orc.
Nice, okay.
But yeah, it has lots of aliens.
Yeah.
But so far we only have 2 countries, because that's one of the things I'm trying to do with the podcast is get people in on the game. I'm using my Patreon to get people into the game, so that I have lots of countries going at each other.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like, you could easily just always add a new startup corporation that's making a name for itself and making moves, and yeah,
or an alien or an alien caveman that's just getting out of, because in this world on this planet used to be completely populated.
Yeah.
But they had a fairly large civil war.
That'll happen.
And so you could get cave people coming out of the cave that survived this war.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's such an interesting little thought. Like, you know, the planets or the galaxy is so big, you can have these futuristic people next to these cavemen.
Well, you've heard of the 7 levels of civilization, haven't you?
I've heard of it, but I don't think I could name them all. Refresh me. Teach me, my friend.
Each one, level 1 is civilization that can control their planet, its power, energy source. The second one is solar system, and then it goes on and on from there.
Okay.
So I actually go beyond those levels on civilization. Like, after level 7, it's the new digital age, and I can't even imagine what that would look like.
Yeah.
Or the age of the Great Machine or temporal age. I don't even name what the three peak technological and social ages are. I just call them the bronze, silver, and golden age of civilization. But there could be civilizations that come from those that build their nation based on that kind of technology and what they imagine it would be.
Yeah, very cool. It's just every little story you could have 1,000 little stories break out from it. Different.
I could become the new GW.
Yeah. Every colony can have a different varying level of success, and they have their own kind of technology style and all.
Okay.
I still got a couple questions for you about all that. We can ramble off.
Sure.
How did the galactic market become so powerful, and what were the implications of expansion efforts? Did it have any drawbacks or negative consequences?
Well, it's capitalism. So I think the biggest negative, as I talk about in this story, one of the big negative consequences is they don't really care about what happens to natives.
Sure.
They're just a new market.
Yeah.
As well as it depletes resources galaxy-wide. Those who control even with replicators, people like their real stuff, so it draws a lot of that.
Yeah.
And the reason it became so productive is because I simply looked on the current, what's it called? How things are currently going with business worldwide. I mean, even communist countries like China are moving toward being a more capitalistic type society.
Yeah, to some degree they are, for sure. They're this weird amalgamation now, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
My next question would be about, like, the faith. I would just like to hear a little bit more. Do you have, like, the founding member? Was their decree passed on from that god, or is it all interpreted?
They have a prophet who says he speaks to the god face to face.
Yeah.
And he lives on the home world where this originally started, renamed Absalom, or it's really hard to pronounce because I didn't make up the word. And he is the prophet of the corporation, and the 12 richest people are his apostles.
Crazy. Yeah, cool. Okay.
It's all about making money.
Yeah, making money. That's cool. What were have you come up with, like, any cool technologies or, like, relics that they've discovered on the way that have, like, maybe galaxy impact and consequences, or, like...
The gene seeding. I mean, not gene seeding, world seeding. That's Warhammer. The world seeding technology.
Yeah, okay.
You see, one of the big problems is cloning creates inbreeding really quickly, and that degenerates your society very quickly. I mean, it would collapse a civilization like 2 or 3 generations. So what they found was a technology that allowed them to accelerate growth on fertilized donor eggs and accelerate the growth, but it also allowed for the individual that's being grown to be in a VR world and have do you know what compressed time is?
No, tell me more.
Okay. I got this originally from Outer Limits. In the Outer Limits episode, they were able to put people in prison for years and centuries in just minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So the idea is that when you want people to be able to do all the jobs and have a life, but you don't have time to wait. So the gene seeding is for colonies that have low populations or are needed to expand quickly.
Yeah.
So these donor eggs, they get millions, if not billions, of donor eggs for each world, and it's kind of like the Creed. Corpse of Creed, except that they actually give them lives.
Yeah, and purpose and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's such an interesting concept of, you close your eyes for a minute, and when you've opened them, you now have 10 years of knowledge and skills and experience. Very cool. Yeah, I can see how that would be, like, one of the biggest impacts on the galaxy, for sure. Just the ability to reproduce and the ability to negate time.
Yes, and they actually, when they leave their chambers, they're actually full adults.
Yeah.
from whatever university they go to in their virtual world, they'll have legal accreditations. If they marry in the virtual world to somebody who's actually real and not a virtual character, when they come out, they will be legally married to that individual. So what happens in the virtual world it has legal implications.
Yeah, okay. So they do definitely try to keep that virtual world like useful and well maintained. Like you're not just going on there to run around and drive cars through mobs of people and live out your darkest fantasies. It's there for
it's there to
and
reproduce. It's for the world seeding. As I said, this is a relic that they found on another world.
Yeah.
They simply adapted to using for them. I believe I set the time for 30 days from the time that the egg is given to the time that they get out.
Okay, yeah, so that's crazy. Yeah, so 30 days and 20 years of experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. That's such a cool concept. I guess my final question I kind of had was, and this is more just kind of going down that thought trail of like, I love seeing all the details that you put in, but it just makes me want to lift up rocks and be like, what's under here? And just, the different types of colonies degrading into like primitive tribes and stuff, and the colonies being left up to their own devices. Like, there's just so much opportunity there to write anything.
Oh yeah, that's why I left it there.
Yeah,
is so that I could. So if I finish this game, we can explore another world.
Yeah.
Or
I always appreciate, like, that's one of the big draws for me for Warhammer 40K is like being included in the story writing process or in the, actual world a little bit more, as opposed to being just like an observer. Like, we're observers of the Star Wars universe because we're not out there writing books for it, and they're not the same thing. When you write like a 40K short story, like, most people will accept that as like relatively canon,
Yeah, I agree.
I like that you have this opportunity for engagement, essentially.
Oh yeah, I love community. That was my favorite thing on my last podcast.
Nice.
And I'm trying to make my Patreon the most inclusive part of the thing, so that they can write stories for me to actually put on the podcast.
Very cool. Yeah, I might have to write something up.
Oh, sounds good to me. I'd love to read it. Do you have any more questions?
No, I think that was all. I really like it. I really like all the different little world building things and how it stacks up. And I like the kind of the theme of it's economic, it's political. Yeah, I like capitalism. I like making some money. I like it.
So do I. Don't make enough.
Yeah, no, but can always make more.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you ever want to read a book that was written by a guy that was 200 years before you or I were born, that knows more about what's going on today, Wealth of Nations. That guy knew everything that's going on today. Yeah,
okay. Wealth of Nations. I might have to give that a peek.
I couldn't get through more than a third of it before my brain exploded.
Yeah. Maybe I'll listen to somebody give me a synopsis on YouTube.
You probably should. It's that guy was... Yeah, he was a genius.
Nice.
He's what capitalism is based on.
Okay. What was his name?
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith. Okay, I've heard of the name for sure, yeah.
Yep, I actually named in the first episode of this podcast, I actually named the ship after him.
Cool.
I was going to name it the Invisible Hand, like in Star Wars. They took that from Adam Smith, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yep. So it was, I am happy to have... I am so glad to have you. I hope you come again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I had a great time. Thanks for having me on your show.
The next guy I'm inviting he does a Norse mythology podcast.
Oh, very cool. That's going to add a whole nother element of
story
ability, like bringing kind of some of that, what he kind of sees interwoven. I think me and you are very similar. I think we're both kind of fascinated by, like, how the world works, how money works, how, things actually interconnect. So always getting like that different worldview of how now he sees how you've written this story. It'll be a good episode, I'm sure.
Well, I hope he says yes.
Well, you send him this episode and say, look at the fun we had. You can have fun too.
I will.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. I look forward to our next time we get together. And keep making those Lorehammer Listener Lores. I love listening to them.
Yeah, I'm having a blast with them too. If you guys want to come check out me on any of my stuff, check out Lorehammer Podcast. It's one of the biggest 40K podcasts. Also, come check out Lorehammer Listener Lore. I share people's short stories, give a little feedback. Oh, I really liked when the orc cut off the Space Marine's head. Very easy stuff. And if you're looking for something a little less nerdy, which I don't know why you would, come check out me and my girlfriend's podcast. It's called Pillow Talk with Mark and B. And I'd love to hang out with you guys, chat more.
So, the last episode I listened to before recording this, because this was a couple months before it will actually go out.
Yeah.
Scary stuff that was written by a computer.
Scary stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Like, what was so scary about the lore that Chat GPT wrote is I didn't prompt it too much. And it came out with like some crazy dark kind of thoughts. And you just think, oh, so that's the collection of human knowledge, I guess. And that's what happens. There's dark implications, man. Yeah. Well, it was fun to have you on board. I'll have you on board today. Yeah, man. It was fun. We leave you on a heavy note. I'll have to try that one out sometime for my lore. Yeah, man. Thank you again for coming. And thanks. I don't know what else to say. Yeah. Adios, amigos. All right. Bye.
Thank you for joining our podcast today. Today, our storyteller was Mark. And he's always welcome to join us. You can catch him on reruns of Lorehammer podcast and currently on Lorehammer Listener Lore. If you want to help guide the show and play the game this is based on, join our Patreon. The link is in the podcast description. If you can't do that, we'd love to have you join the community. Links to our Facebook and Discord are in the description. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for joining us, as well as Mark. Hope to hear from you all and to see Mark again.